So, what if I told you that some of the most powerful leadership principles on the planet weren't dreamed up in a business school, but were actually forged on the battlefield? Today, we're diving deep into a philosophy called extreme ownership. It's a mindset that comes straight out of the high stakes, life or death world of the U.S. Navy SEALs. The book kicks off with a line that sounds like the start of a classic military tall tale. So, no shit, there I was. But trust me, what comes next is not some glorified war story. It's a brutally honest look at what happens when a mission goes horribly, horribly wrong, and someone has to answer for it. Okay, so picture this. Remote Iraq. It's not just a city, it's total chaos. In the middle of a huge operation, everything goes sideways. It's dark, it's confusing, the literal fog of war, and friendly forces, both American SEALs and Iraqi soldiers they're fighting alongside, start shooting at each other. It's a blue-on-blue, a friendly fire incident, the absolute worst-case scenario. When the shooting finally stops, an American SEAL is wounded, and an Iraqi ally is dead. The mission is a complete disaster. And in the silence that follows, there's just one heavy, soul-crushing question hanging in the air. Whose fault was this? Now, in the debrief, people start trying to fall on their swords. The radio man, the advisors, everyone's trying to take a piece of the blame. But the commander of the unit, Jocko Willink, he just cuts them off. He looks his own bosses dead in the eye and says, there was only one person to blame for everything, me. And that one sentence right there, that's the foundation for this entire philosophy. That incredible moment of accountability is the perfect way to understand the first and most important principle of this whole thing. It's all about ultimate responsibility. And this isn't just some nice-to-have idea. It is the absolute core that everything else is built on. So, what is extreme ownership really? Well, here it is. The leader is responsible for everything. And I mean everything, not just the stuff in their job description, but every single outcome, the wins, and more importantly, all the failures. There's no one else to blame. No excuses. The leader has to own the failure completely. And then, this is the key part, they have to create a new plan to win. Let's pull this out of the battlefield and into the boardroom. Imagine a VP of manufacturing. His big, ambitious plan is falling apart. And when he talks to the board, it's a blame game. He's pointing fingers at his managers, the sales team, the distribution centers, anyone but himself. And his go-to line is, well, I just can't make them listen to me. Sound familiar? But after getting coached on this idea of extreme ownership, he does a total 180. He walks into that same boardroom and says, I am to blame. He owns it, all of it. Then he lays out a brand new plan that starts not with what they need to do, but with what he is going to do differently. And the result? Instant respect from the board, and for the first time, a real plan to move forward. So once a leader truly accepts that level of responsibility, it leads to a pretty bold and, for some people, a really tough conclusion. There are no bad teams, only bad leaders. The proof for this comes from one of the toughest training environments on Earth, SEAL Hell Week. You've got these two boat crews. Boat Crew 2 is the gold standard. Always winning. Morale is through the roof. They work like a single unit. Then you've got Boat Crew 6. They're dead last every single time. They're frustrated, they're yelling at each other, it's a total mess. So the instructors decide to run a little experiment. They make just one change. They don't swap out any of the crew members, they don't give them a different boat, they just take the leader from the winning team and put him in charge of the losing team, and vice versa. So what do you think happened? It was unbelievable. The change was immediate. Boat Crew 6, the team that never won anything, won the very next race. The same tired, frustrated guys in the same boat suddenly became a winning team. It was the clearest possible proof of the leader's impact. And this story really hammers home a critical truth about leadership. It's not about the motivational speeches you give, it's about the standard of performance you're willing to accept. If you tolerate mediocrity, mediocrity becomes the new standard. It's that simple. A good leader doesn't just talk about excellence, they refuse to tolerate anything less. Okay, so we've established how critical the individual leader is. But what about the bigger picture? How do you get whole teams, entire departments, to work together? That brings us to the next law of combat. Cover and move. Cover and move is a basic combat tactic. One team lays down covering fire so the other team can advance safely. It's pure teamwork. But think about what that really means. It means every single part of the team is essential. It means you have to smash those internal silos. Understand that you all depend on each other. and actively support other teams so that the overall mission, the big goal, succeeds. On the battlefield, getting this wrong can be catastrophic. The authors talk about a time when one SEAL team was pinned down. They were so focused on their own problem, on their own little world, that they completely forgot to radio another friendly team on a nearby roof. That other team could have easily provided covering fire to make their move safe. They failed to cover and move. And man, doesn't that sound exactly like something you'd hear in an office? How many times have you heard a department head say, "Hey, that's not my problem. I've got my own team to worry about"? That is siloed thinking, plain and simple. When one part of the company refuses to cover for another, the entire mission is put in jeopardy. Everybody loses. Now, here's where we get to the really advanced stuff. All of these principles, own everything, no bad teams, cover and move, they sound pretty black and white, but applying them effectively requires a ton of nuance. And that brings us to the final and maybe the toughest concept of all, the dichotomy of leadership. So a leader has to lead, right? Obvious. You have to be decisive and take charge. But, and this is a huge but, you also have to be willing to be a follower. If someone on your team comes up with a better plan, a truly confident leader puts their ego aside and says, "That's a better idea. Let's do that." That's not weakness. That is the ultimate strength. And here's another one. A leader needs to be aggressive. You have to be proactive, hunt for opportunities, and push the team forward. But you can't be overbearing. If your aggression is so intense that it shuts people down and makes them afraid to speak up with new ideas, you're actually hurting the mission. You have to find that balance. A great leader also has to be humble. You have to be willing to take the blame, to check your ego at the door. That's the heart of extreme ownership. But don't get it twisted. Humble does not mean passive. A leader still has to be willing to stand up, make the hard calls, and fight for their team and the mission. You see, leadership is this constant balancing act. It's about being attentive to the small details without getting bogged down by them. It's about being close with your team, but not so close that you can't make objective decisions. It's about being disciplined, but not so rigid that you can't adapt when the plan changes. Finding that middle ground, that's the art. So, we end right back where we started. These principles, born from the chaos of combat, give us a clear, if challenging, path to better leadership. It really all boils down to that one simple, powerful idea. So let me leave you with this to chew on. The next time your project is going off the rails or your team is struggling, who are you going to blame?